Some of my favorite figures in my collection are my Love Live figmas, and it's been one of my dreams to build a diorama of the Idol Study Club room from Love Live Sunshine for them to reside in. So today I'm going to show you how I did it. I'm Geo, and we're going to be building the Uranashi Idol Club room. First, I want to break down how I plan to build the room. I wanted it from this front POV of the room with focus on this window face wall, as I like to call it, with the left and right walls visible. After getting general measurements based on the sizes of the figures, I made some rough blueprints and started cutting pieces of foam board for the floor and the left and right walls. This was dollar store foam board with the paper layer peeled off. Once everything was cut and looking good, I moved to making the wooden floor from cut popsicle sticks. It was incredibly tedious cutting the little round bits off all the sticks, but it was well worth it. To give it a shiny laminated appearance, I hit the floor with multiple coats of Mod Podge gloss spray. And when I say multiple, it was probably 8 or 9 times over a span of 3 days, almost using half the can. And thankfully, shiny it was. Moving up from the floor, the next target was the walls and painting them. In the anime, the top half of the walls have a lavender-like cover, while the bottom is a light caramel color with a wooden border. Painting the lavender was a slight issue as mixing the color was incredibly difficult, but we got there in the end. The bottom portion ended up being so much easier, and the wood bordering was achieved using coffee stir sticks. The left and right walls were basically done after that, and I moved on to the window wall. I first made a rough template and MS Paint to differentiate the different layers and thickness of the metal portions, and then transitioned that onto a large piece of poster board. The intention was to build on top of it with popsicle and coffee stir stick. 3 different types were used to depict different thicknesses. In fact, speaking of the sticks, just to show how long I was working on this, the dollar store ended up changing the packaging of them. Not gonna lie, the older one looks better. Building it was a bit of a struggle as the glue didn't like adhering to the wood and would rather stick to my hand, but with some determination it was completed. It was first painted with a white base and then gray. I originally planned to paint it a metallic silver, but I decided not to. But I did add a hint of silver to the gray paint mix. For the glass panes, lamination sheets were used. They aren't perfect, but they got the effect I wanted. I didn't acknowledge this previously, but the wall has a sliding door which leads outside, something I originally wanted to add, but realized the mechanics were a bit too complex for the small scale and my skill set. So I opted for an open door. Speaking of doors, there's another door in the room on the right wall, and what I assume is a connection to a neighboring room. But on my model, this doorway will lead to an abyss of nothingness. Or Hagumi.
Welcome to Hellzone!
To make the door, foam board was cut to the shape with 2 window holes. The pen I used to etch out the dimensions and windows ended up leaving pretty big imprints on the foam, so wood filler was used to make it smooth. It was painted a greenish turquoise blue color, and after a test fit, was secured in with some mini hinges, so it can actually open and close. The doorknob was made from some poster board, the top of a push pin, and this mysterious plastic orb. I had to scrap this original idea due to the plastic piece being too heavy and not wanting to stick, so I opted to use a coffee stirrer to make a flat handle knob. It's not accurate to the anime, but looks a lot better in my opinion. Now that the main structural pieces of the room were to a point of completion, I moved towards making some of the furniture that adorn the room, starting with the bookcases. There's 2 bookcases in the room, these 3 major larger brown ones and a smaller white one. I started by making the small white one as a test using cardboard and masking tape, and I was quite pleased by the result. Considering it a success, I decided to scratch build the 3 large ones in the same style. Due to size issues, I decided to give these only 6 shelves opposed to the ones in the anime having a total of 7. The process of building was identical to the small one, just cutting out cardboard panels, gluing them together, and applying masking tape to cover the corrugation. My cuts weren't the most even, but luckily due to the flexible nature of the cardboard, I was able to just bend it to the desired shape. Following the build, they were coated with hard finish Mod Podge and then painted brown. They are far from perfect, especially as mentioned, some aren't the most even, but really they'll do for now, and I'm pretty proud of them. Since the shelves were done, I needed things to put in them, so I moved to making some boxes and books. In the anime, the room has random cardboard boxes littered around, probably from its pre-idolized status, so I thought it would be appropriate to make a few for the room. These were made by just etching out a template for a cube on some thin cardboard and then cutting and gluing the shape. It's kind of funny how I'm taking a cardboard box to make a slightly smaller cardboard box. The more colorful boxes were made in a similar style, but instead with an open lid and another thinner piece of cardboard adorning the edge. These ones have an added lid and cardboard to the base to give it curved edges. A teeny tiny piece of masking tape was added to give it the look as if it was sealed. For a fun little Easter egg, I also made this Mikan box that's seen in episode 6. The box was made in the same way as the others, just with some white poster board instead, and I replicated the graphic on GIMP. In fact, speaking of graphics, that's a good transition to take a look at some of the art pieces I made for the room. The first and probably my favorite was this recruitment poster Chica drew in episode 1. I took the time to hand draw the entire thing using the few times it appeared on screen as reference. The rest I did digitally, either using some assistance from screen caps from the anime or doing them from scratch, like Kanan's notebook from episode 6. I made the base of it in GIMP and added some text in Paint 3D using the pencil tool to make it look handwritten. On the physical model, the base was cardboard, masking tape painted white to cover the corrugation, and the cover glued on. This one is not water damaged though. The most important of all the pieces I made in this genre was the infamous School Idol World results sheet.
ゼロ
This used a screen cap from the anime with text put on top put back in. How could I not include it? And here's what they look like prior to application. I usually print multiple on one paper just in case something happens to one and I need a replacement. I'm gonna do a printing and decal tutorial soon, so be sure to subscribe if you want to learn how to make your own in a desired scale. Returning to furniture, the sink was my next piece to tackle. The frame was made using craft board and the top was poster board with a hole cut on the top. Knobs for the sink were made using super glue caps. I painted it white, then silver, and then the insides black. Also, yes, it doesn't have a nozzle. I'm working on it. To the right of the sink, there's what I assume to be a fire extinguisher. The main shape was made using foam board while the door panel was poster board. It was then painted red and lettering was applied to the door using a toothpick. I was unsatisfied with the original paint job, so a new one was applied later. I really like the look of the surface as it actually looks like metal, to me at least. To the right of the extinguisher was this wall panel. I don't really know what this is, but if my assumption of the red box is correct, I assume this is a hose? This was just a piece of cardboard with poster board on top. You can sort of see at this point a large portion of the scratch build parts are basically the same process with slight tweaks. Lots of cardboard, masking tape, and foam board. It was then time to take on probably the most ambitious scratch build part of this project, the whiteboard. I found recently that my dollar store actually started selling dry erase boards, so I thought it would be perfect to use this. It was cut to size and then a wooden frame was built around it. The wood planks were made from multiple coffee stir sticks glued together in bundles of 2 and 3. Once it was to the shape, holes were drilled on the left and right sides and the board was secured in with a nail on each side, which allowed for rotation. The edges of the board were covered in masking tape layered with hard finish Mod Podge and then painted with grey paint. Wooden dowels were glued to the bottom to represent wheels. It was painted silver and it was done. This is probably one of my proudest scratch builds and my favorite part of the project. My attention was then brought to the center of the room, specifically the table and chairs. First was the table. I originally started with this, made from foam board and stir stick legs, and it honestly sucked.
Unacceptable.
The shape wasn't right, it was way too tall, and it just looked ugly. So I made a new one. The second version was made from cardboard, and to make sure the shape was perfect, I printed out a template to follow and glued it to the cardboard. I didn't really know how to get around the wood grain print on the table, so I just found a similar pattern on Google and Mod Podged it on. After that, I ripped off the legs from the original table, cut them down, and glued them on. It was perfect. Well, perfect at least compared to the old one. Of course a table needs chairs, and with that, I hit a bit of a wall. The room in the anime is filled with these fold-up chairs, and I couldn't really make them from scratch. But luckily, Hasegawa Model Kits came to the rescue with this 1/12 scale chair set. Each set includes 4 chairs and 1 table, so I bought 2 sets for a total of 8. You could look at this as a problem, as Aqua has 9 members, but I'll let Chica take one for the team and Stan. You might be able to tell, but this was my first time ever assembling a model kit like this. Well, first time besides doing a Gundam kit when I was like 8, which did not go well. So I think this was a victory. Once the chairs were built, I took them outside and primed them with Tamiya Gray primer. And once that was dry, Tamiya TS17 Silver was applied, and my gosh was I happy with the output. If you followed my videos, you'll know I faced quite a few bloopers as far as paint application goes, but I'm more than happy to report a victory. The cushions on the chairs were hand painted with a dark blue acrylic. I actually really appreciate hand brushing this part as the strokes made it look more like the fabric of a cushion. Either that or I'm on a ton of copium. I touched up some details on the chair with a paint pen and I called them finished. And with that, we are ready for a reveal. As I said at the beginning of this video, making this was a huge dream of mine. Not a bang dream, but a regular dream. And I'm so happy to see it materialized. I've been working on this on and off for a long time, and you can probably see that reflected in some of the pieces. But I love it no matter what. This was a huge learning experience for me, and sure it looks a bit derpy, but I wouldn't have it any other way. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you've made it this far, please subscribe as it'll help me do builds like this in future. And if you're feeling extra generous, visit my Linktree in the description where you'll find links to all my social media and Ko-Fi where you can leave a donation and get a shout out in the next video. And with that, I've been Geo, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.